When I look back to my old projects that don't sound as good, it's usually because the bass is not sitting where I want it to. And it's not that the bass isn't loud enough. There's plenty of bass, it's just not hitting me in the chest or it's not punchy. And the secret there is mid-range. When I hear a good worship mix, the bass is punching me in the chest and I feel it. And if you enjoy music, you know that the bass is everything. It makes you want to move. You're feeling the impact of the lyrics, and it all starts from the source. So we're gonna talk a little bit today about the gear that helps us with that. As you can tell, today we have a special guest, my bass pedal board, and I'll also share a couple plugins that I use to get my bass sound right. So let's get into it. When I'm thinking punchy, I'm thinking Fender P-Bass, because that's what the P stands for. That's not what the P stands for. From my experience, the P-Bass has a really nice punchy sound with a healthy amount of mid-range. Now let's talk a little bit about the board here. My dad built this cool little board for me. I mean, I just arranged my pedals on the floor, drew up a diagram and gave him all the dimensions and asked him to build a little wooden board for me, and he did a wonderful, wonderful job. So thank you, Dad. So let's check out the board here for a second. We are starting off with the polytune. Of course, it's always a good idea to tune your instrument, but it's also very useful to just have something that completely kills your signal in case you need to unplug your bass guitar. And then that goes into the Electro Harmonics Microsynth. It has like an octaver plus a synth generator. You'll hear this pedal often during the big section. You got the sub octave with the whole that kind of sound, like really aggressive bass sound. It's all coming from the Microsynth. That goes into the Origin Effects Cali 76 compressor, which is emulating an 1176. With this pedal, I'm just looking for an even signal throughout and a long sustain on my low notes. When I'm doing the sub notes with my thumb, just very subtle. I want it to be nice and even and well sustained throughout. And when I'm digging in, I don't want it to hurt anybody's ears. So this is just a really nice compressor for that. And that goes into the Walrus Audio Ages, which is an overdrive. And I just picked this one because it has a dry knob, and plenty of overdrives tend to steal away all the low end in your signal. So I just found it really convenient that it had a dry knob. And finally, we land on the Aguilar tone hammer. You got a P-Bass or J-Bass running into this thing with the gain knob about 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock with the AGS engaged. I would say you're at about 80–90% there with the tone. I mean, this thing sounds amazing. Now, when I emphasize the mid-range on the bass, I'm mainly talking about harmonics. Let's pretend we have a single sine wave playing at about 60 hertz. Most speakers won't be able to generate that with a lot of clarity unless you have a subwoofer. Now, if you were to saturate that signal with something like the tone hammer or some kind of an overdrive, you start to see these harmonics that appear in the upper octaves. Now, what that does is it gives the impression that the bass is nice and loud and punchy. Now, what that allows us to do is to lower the overall bass signal, which gives us a lot of headroom for other things in the mix. And it gives the impression that there's a lot of bass when actually there isn't. All you're hearing is harmonics. And I think this pedal right here does a phenomenal job. So let's actually check out what the bass guitar sounds like down the chain. Now here's my dry signal at 100% everything. Just kidding. Here's my actual dry signal. My AGS is disengaged, so you're just hearing the pure DI. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is engage the AGS. Let's compare that with the AGS disengaged. Cool, so a lot of the tone already comes from the AGS using a pick and having a P bass. And now I'll engage the compressor. Nice. Let's try the same thing without the compressor. Now let's go into the Walrus Audio Ages. Here's without. Turn it on now. That might be a little overkill depending on what section of the song you're playing, but usually if the drums are in and it's nice and loud with the electric in there and the keys are in there, this will usually make your bass feel a lot more present without taking up a lot of the headroom in your mix. So that's the overdrive. Now let's go turn on the Ages and we'll turn on the Microsynth. Nice and fat. So that's the gear that I'm running for my bass guitar. Let's record one little segment of a demo song, and then we'll talk about how we can process that sound to make it sound the best that it can. So I took a little segment from the Worthy's the Lamb cover without the bass in it, and we're just going to record the bass on top, and we'll talk about what I do to make it sound good. Grab the bass. For this segment, this is like the loudest part of the song, so I'm gonna have everything engaged except the Microsynth. And then for the second half of that little segment, we'll engage the Microsynth, retrack it, and we'll kind of compare the signal a little bit. Here we go.
Bridge, 2, 3, 4.
For that chorus going into the one there, we'll engage the Microsynth. Punch in right there. Oh my gosh, really loud. Now, if I were playing that live with the board on the ground, of course I would just do it all one take, turn off the Microsynth at the end there. But that's the take that we have. Let's jump into the computer and see what we can do to help blend that into the mix and make it sound the best that it can. Okay, so let's check out the signal that we have recorded. So you can already hear there's a lot of grit going on there, and I used a pick to make sure that articulation is there. Okay, right off the bat, I think that the fret noise is a little bit too much because of the overdrive that I have engaged there. So I don't want to cut out too much. I'm just going to apply a little dynamic EQ so that once it passes a certain threshold, it'll duck that range. There's a little bit of mud that I don't like. And let's see what that peak sounds like. Okay, and I'm not going to cut that. I'm just going to apply a gentle dynamic EQ on there. So now let's do a little bit of an A and B. Cool. The second thing that I'm going to do is, even though I have a compressor on my board already, I'm just going to apply a little bit more compression just to really even out my signal. And for that, I love using Universal Audio 1176 here. I might make my time settings a little bit faster. I don't want it too clampy. At most, I'm really looking for about 3 to 5 decibels of gain reduction. And let's check before and after what we have so far. Nice, we're really looking for subtlety here because the bass tone going into the computer already sounds really nice, so you don't really have to do much. The last plugin that I'm going to add onto this before my final secret sauce is the Decapitator, and it's another saturator, and I know it's already gone through three stages of saturation already, but this really does the trick in making your bass intelligible. I'll push the drive up to about 3, and I don't really touch anything else other than that. So let's hear A and B with the Decapitator. Again, it's subtle, but you can really tell the low mid-range got a lot thicker with the Decapitator. So now let's play this in the context of the full mix, and I'll just A and B our signal chain so far. Here's with everything turned off.
4.
Okay, cool. So it's not drastically different, but I think that'll fit in the mix a lot better. Here's two plugins that I use, one on the bass channel and one on my master, that really help bring my bass to the next level. The first one is called CLA Bass. It's one of those all-in-one kind of a plugin, but here I'm really going to disengage a lot of the stuff. The two things mainly that I'm looking for is the sub, the chorus, and again, bass boost from the sub. And the chorus will turn your bass signal from mono into a stereo signal. And I'm just going to boost that just a little bit. Now let's compare A and B, before and after, the CLA bass. Now I'll share with you my final secret sauce. This is a plugin I use on my master bus most of the time, rather than on a single channel. So I'm just going to gently apply it in my bass signal, and it's called R-Bass from Waves Audio. I'm going to immediately just bring the intensity all the way down and the frequency back to around 60 hertz. If you want to really hear the impact of this plugin, go ahead and put on a pair of headphones or earphones, whatever it is, because this is really going to make a big difference in the sub range. Here's without the plugin. Here's with. We'll also go to the Microsynth section without, with, cool. So usually I'm not applying this on my bass signal. I'm actually putting this on my master bus with the intensity all the way down at -24 and frequency around 60 to 70. Let's compare how that sounds within the context of the mix. We'll just listen to everything. Turn it on and off.
4.
So there you have it. That's the gear that I use and how I process my bass. I hope you found that useful and helpful. If there's any other topics that you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments and I'll get to it. From my last video, I'm already added to my list how I go about tuning my drums and the overall process of how I make these worship videos. Stay tuned for those, and I'll see you next time.